Do you have a fearful, avoidant attachment style and you want to learn more about it? This is a good video to watch. And it's healing for me because that's my attachment style. I haven't really shared this before. But just me making this video is going to heal me and heal you.
Yeah. I'm inspired. I'm inspired.
What's happening, guys? My name is Sumedh Chatterjee from the Flow Zone Academy, and I'm a flow state coach, which means that I help you feel better and perform better. Today, we're talking about the attachment style of fearful, avoidant. Sometimes it's also called fearful, disorganized. Kind of explains me. This attachment style has shown up in my past relationships, but not only in my past relationships, it's also showed up in my business. It showed up in my health, different areas of my life it's shown up, and that's what attachment styles can really do. Primarily, it is for relationships, but it has a ripple effect to affect the different areas of our life, okay? So this video is primarily breaking down the fearful, avoidant attachment style. If you haven't done the attachment style quiz or the questionnaire yet, Personal Development School has a great one. I'll leave a link in the video's description so you guys can do that quiz and check it out, what your attachment style is. But yeah, this is kind of a personal video, and I feel that making this video will also help me, but it's also going to help you guys because I haven't really talked about this before, and I think that it's a powerful topic to really explore because relationships are a big impact of our life because, you know, it applies to our survival values and our replication values, right, as human beings as we go forward. So it really starts to affect our self-images. We really become one unit. So this attachment style is kind of ambivalent, aloof, you know, hot and cold, push and pull. It's very on and off, right? In a sense of like, okay, we have these couples that are on and off. We see them all the time, right? One of them has got to be a fearful, avoidant attachment style because, I mean, this is really what it is, right? In terms of wanting to connect so deeply with someone, but also being so scared of connecting so deeply with someone. So wanting intimacy, but fearing intimacy at the same time, okay? It's this idea of like, I'm going to reject you before you reject me because I know I'm not worthy of love, okay? Because of my childhood patterns that I've noticed growing up and what I've associated with love. So usually people with a fearful, avoidant attachment style, they had very turbulent households. They had very turbulent households. They had very emotional households where maybe the parents were fighting a lot. I know that I heard my parents fighting a lot growing up. And not to get too personal about it, but yeah, I've just noticed one time when I was a small child, you know, hearing them yelling and sort of, you know, coming from my room and being very scared of what's happening around me, just being very confused and not knowing what to do with that energy. And also subconsciously, you start to associate love with those arguments. A person with this attachment style, you've learned that love is this turbulent thing, right? That love is not this peaceful thing. So when you get into this peaceful nature in love and you can finally relax, right, there's going to be some form of like drama that you want to build back up, or at least subconsciously you're projecting that, right? Because you've seen that your whole life, this fighting or this turbulence, it gets projected outwardly, subconsciously. You might not want this consciously. That's the thing, right? You don't want to fight. You don't want to get into arguments. You don't want to sort of disapprove or disagree or have this power play with the partner, but it comes out of you subconsciously, right? How are you dealing with your anger internally, okay? Another thing is noticing that your core wound is related to trust. It's like you want to love, and I felt this, I want to love, but I have this underlying fear of being made a fool or being embarrassed in some way. In terms of that, like something coming to the surface or then finding out something about me or like that kind of nature, right? And of course, I'm giving you a general framework. This isn't like 100% true to your case. It might not be, or it might speak to you very clearly in terms of, you know, what's going on in terms of this. So I've kind of pieced together what it means to me. Fearful, avoidant attachment style has a lot of sexual partners. Now, this is not what you think it is. It's not like they're trying to be a player in any case. It's that they've learned that boundaries don't matter, okay? And, you know, being in relationships with people is all about boundaries. So you want to feel loved and connect with people, but you've associated that, especially as a man, you associate that with sex because that's what you see in the culture. And it's It might also be for women, but you know, that's kind of what we associate with love and connection is sex. But one thing to understand is when I begun my whole personal, spiritual, mental development journey, I started to notice that I always wanted to be better, that I always wanted to improve. And you might feel like that if you have a fearful avoidant attachment style, like nothing's good enough, right? It's like, I'm not worthy, nothing's good enough, I have to keep being better, I have to keep changing and evolving and adapting. And that's kind of the coping mechanism. One of them, at least, is that. Another coping mechanism that I highly want to point out is people with this attachment style are very, very good at reading people, because that was their coping mechanism growing up, is they saw, you know, their caregivers' faces or different things that they saw when they were younger. Maybe went through some kind of childhood trauma. I know I was beat with a ruler a lot in India when I was growing up, when I was a very small child as well. There's a lot of corporal punishment and things like that I faced. I just knew that I had a depth of perception, that I could read body language really well. And I would become very introverted as well and not learn to trust authority. Learning to notice like micro expressions, right? People's faces and shifting body language, how they're holding their body. Like just observing all of that. Like you become almost like an observational expert, right? Because you are introverted and intuitive in that sense, because you've kind of distanced yourself from that. You don't want to go too deep into the relationship, but you don't want to be too close to it either, right? So you're playing this kind of yo-yo effect, right? Of this pulling in, pulling back, pulling in, pulling back. You know, you fight, you argue, you make up. You fight, you argue, you make up again. And it's just this constant back and forth that you might be noticing with a fearful avoidant attachment style, okay? Now, of course, I'm not saying this and I'm only blaming, you know, all the things that happened in my past relationships or the things that I've gone through in my life only based on attachment style, right? There's many other factors at play here, and you can't be like, oh, it's because of my attachment style that I'm like this. Oh no, right? No, not at all. This is just a map for you to work with, right? And understanding that, it actually gives you more power, because you know that, okay, this is showing up in my relationships, but it's also showing up in my business, that I'm like not being very clear with people in my communication, right? Maybe I'm being easily misunderstood. So what are some things that you can do to heal, right? Of course, you're highly empathetic. So using that not as a curse, but as a gift, to actually read people's body language, to understand them better. You did this so you wouldn't feel abandoned, so you wouldn't get rejected in a sense, right? Growing up. So what you can do is essentially use your empathetic gifts to be able to actually hold space for people and be able to give people advice and really be able to see and feel them through their emotions, but also not get too attached to that. Find a way to detach yourself and not take things personally, you know, give yourself some distance from certain situations, get your own privacy, your own space, so that you have a time where you can replenish and then come back into the relationship. Give yourself your own time with your own buddies and not only time with your partner, right? So again, in your business, it can show up like, okay, I'm going in, but then I'm going out of it. Like I'm sending people a message and then I'm not following up. Or like in your health, it could be like yo-yo dieting, right? It's like you do that and you try something out, but then you give up, right? It's like, it's that energy of like back and forth, like that fluctuation energy, okay? So it does have this kind of like yo-yo effect. So what can you do to heal? So personally, I really like this list by Sylvie Caucasian. She says, be willing to acknowledge your childhood pain, bring compassion to the shut down parts of you, start paying attention to your subtle feelings, lean towards connection in small doses, learn to compromise in your relationships, practice sharing small vulnerabilities, and learn to own or apologize when you dismiss others. One thing to do to heal is improve your communication skills. Verbal, nonverbal, okay? Both. Just you have this ability to notice others who are communicating great, but when it comes to your communication, you might be holding yourself back or not really saying what you mean in the moment, or maybe because of the vast emotions or the empathy that you're dealing with in your relationship, that you might be like, you know, closed off from it. Or I specifically notice men do this. They have this kind of cold, like, you know, indifferent attitude where they just dismiss and they just completely ignore and push away, and they never talk to them again, just to play the game, right? But really internally, they're crumbling inside, like I want to say something but I can't, like, you know, just playing the silent treatment game. Communication is your top skill set right now. Improve your skills of communication, saying what you truly mean, expressing what you truly mean, so there are no suspicions, right? Let's say your partner comes back late one night, instead of going immediately with the suspicion of like, oh, where were you? You know, going through their texts with them, or just being able to, you know, say like, no, I was really stuck in traffic, you know? You could ask my Uber driver, you know, that I just was with. You could really, you know, open up and be like more open and transparent with them, so that you build trust with that person, okay? Who has this fearful avoidance style. Maybe it's your partner who has this style and not you specifically. So I'm just saying, like, if there are any suspicions or there's trust issues, like, I know that I had to do that with an ex as well. I had to reach out to them and be like, look, you know, I was not doing something within my values back then, and so I just want to bring it up today, so we're cool. We have a clean communication line. Clean communication line is very important here, okay? Clean communication lines. Next thing that I would say is vulnerability. Work on your vulnerability. Work on being vulnerable from a space of strength. That's the biggest thing that you want to work on as a fearful avoidant, okay? Like really being able to just completely just not, again, it's not about like going to your partner and showing your weakness and being like, oh, but you know, and over apologizing and like crumbling down. Like nobody wants that in a partner, especially as a man. You don't want to show that, you know, you're like completely just falling all over the place and all that. But you want to communicate vulnerably at a space of like, listen, I understand and I apologize the fact that you feel that way. I really wanted to tell you that this is what I truly mean about the situation. I don't want any confusion around it, but this is what I feel. These are my values. I hope we can work something out in terms of this, because you really mean a lot to me in this relationship, and I feel that we can gain a new level of trust together if we truly discuss this topic. So a lot of the times I've noticed in my past relationship, I just like break out of contact, you know, like just not communicate, just completely just cut off all strands of communication and not get vulnerable, okay? But this is, I'm telling you to do the opposite. Actually, that is the cure to this. The remedy is to learn to open up, learn to communicate. You know, if you can't do it with your partner, you know, do it with a consultant or a coach. The next thing is not feeling misunderstood by actually learning to understand the other person, right? Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Stephen Covey, that's what I'm telling you to do. The next thing is to reprogram your ideas of safety and trust. You might feel unsafe in the relationship. You might feel a lack of trust in the relationship. So to be able to get you the certainty or the closure of that is to basically find the reasons with which you can trust your partner. Look for the green flags, not just the red flags. To be able to build a safety net in that relationship, to be able to really speak openly about like who they're communicating with, right? And just, again, you don't want to come off as like this is jealousy, right? Because this is your attachment style. It's not jealousy, right? This is just how you were wired. So you want to rewire, you want to reprogram, you want to listen to subliminals and affirmations, and you know, do the kinds of breath work to bring up this trauma and really deal with it, right? Some people could have even gone through childhood trauma, childhood abuse, right? Sexual abuse, spiritual abuse, mental abuse, all this kind of stuff, right? So you want to really deal with the past and leave it there in the past. Cut the emotional cords that are keeping you stuck, because you might not be over your past relationships yet. You might be still holding on to it, like your heart is like connected to it, and it's not letting you move forward in life. So you really want to deal with it in this way of reprogramming. Lastly is understanding that you're an adult now, right? And maybe you're not an adult watching this, but I just want you to say that, okay, you're at that age now where you understand things better, right? Like you're not the same young child who has a lost inner child that's feeling unworthy and feeling loved. You're not that. You're in fact an adult now. So to remind yourself, yo, I'm an adult now. I have to reparent myself. I have to understand that I have autonomy. I have true decision-making skills, right? I understand that my choices, my reality, my rules. Okay, so really learning to set those boundaries, you know, learning to be an adult learning to really step into your autonomy and your character and your role that you're playing as an adult, whether you're a brother or a sister or a father or a son or a mother, or whatever your role is, you are stepping into that role and you're establishing that I am grown up. Really learning to be okay with the worst case scenarios in your mind. If your mind brings you to the fearful avoidance of like, I don't want to go into this, I don't want to confront. Don't look at it as confrontation, look at it as carefrontation. Okay, loving boundaries, loving interrogations. Bring it up with people. Hey, using love and hate in the same sentence, right? As my business coach said, is like, hey, look, I love you, but I don't like this behavior that you did, right? So understanding that is such a powerful tool to be able to keep your care, because every emotion has a baseline of care, as I've said it many times on this channel before, and coming into your own power, your personal power again, and not just going on this hamster wheel of improvement, but understanding that your process involved, right? Not just predictability involved, right? So you're not controlling the predictions, but you're controlling your own process and trusting in the process of healing. I hope you enjoyed this video. May you never be the same again. May the flow be with you and stay legendary. Let's get it. Boom.